It is 5 p.m. Welcome, everyone. This evening, we are beginning this special meeting with executive session for approximately 30 minutes. The purpose of this executive session is to discuss with legal counsel, employee, work performance, potential litigation, and the legal or financial risks of a course of action. Director Beno is absent and is excused from this meeting. We will return at 5:30 p.m. Thank you. Thank you.
See, you were smart. You brought snacks.
Not yet.
Okay.
You're good.
Good evening. We are on a special meeting tonight. The purpose of this special meeting is to discuss and approve agenda and a public comment. And the board will adjourn for special business. And now we're gonna start with 1.03 roll call. Director Clark.
Here.
Director Hamada.
Present.
Director Margell.
Here.
And Director Beno is excused. Due to not having all board members present, the board will not take collective action this evening as indicated at the March special meeting. Now I'm going to read a statement that the board had put together. At the March 24th special meeting, the board accepted President Clark's resignation from the position of board president. The board recognizes and apologizes for the insensitive comments made at the recent board meetings as they were inappropriate and do not reflect our values of inclusivity and respect. As acting chair and a spokesman of the board this meeting, I will assure the public that the board believes in a restorative culture and will commit to holding one another with grace and accountability. It is the board's hope that the public will do the same. We want to assure the public that we remain committed to our role in serving all Kent School District stakeholders. We will not let this matter deter us from advancing the interest of all students. The entire board will do better by increasing our diversity, equity, and inclusion training and leading with our values of equity, excellence, and community. Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with Open Public Meeting Act. We welcome public participation in this meeting and thank those who have come to this meeting and those who are reviewing our live stream. Process of audience and participation. The purpose of this board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board would listen to, but not respond to, comments from visitors. Individuals with items of the board, for the board or the superintendent must provide the items directly to safety service staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any item turned in will be provided to the board superintendent the following meeting. Those wishing to comment must complete a comment card, turn it in no later than the end of item 2.01, resolution number 1639-2016 bond fund reallocation presentation. Visitors who have completed a comment card indicating a desire to speak to an agenda item by calling at that portion of the agenda. There is a brief delay in the live stream audio. We will allow for extra time for you to make your way to the boardroom if you are in the overflow room. When it's your turn to address the board, please state your name at the start of your testimony. The students will be first to speak on any topic. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We will hear a timer when the 3 minutes are up. Please do not use specific names of staff, students, or personnel identifiable information. Abusive comments and personal directed towards staff and board members will not be tolerated. The vice president, board members, or legal counsel may interrupt or terminate any individual statements when it is too lengthy or obscene or irrelevant. We are now 2.0 presentation. Now I will turn into superintendent to call on.
Thank you, Vice President Farah. I'd like to call on Dr. Wade Behringer, our Associate Superintendent of Strategic Initiatives and Operations, to begin the presentation this evening. Dr. Behringer.
Good evening, Vice President Farah, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Antello. Appreciate the opportunity to be here again this evening. It was only a week ago that I stood in front of you with the same presentation you're going to hear this evening, because there's no use in putting together a second presentation for the exact same ask. So I'm here to talk to you about the 2016 bond fund reallocation. As I shared last week, we have an opportunity and a need to be able to purchase some property, to be able to expand and support our growing programs, specifically to make sure that we can meet the needs of our Kent Virtual Academy, as well as our transition outreach program, or the outreach program. So in keeping with the board's goals of creating effective organizational systems and the superintendent's goal to provide equitable, safe, healthy, and high-quality learning environments, the KSD capital planning team has determined a time-sensitive need for some strategic property purchases in support of the essential programs within this district. As you're aware, as I stated, the new Canyon Ridge is opening the fall of 2023. We're currently doing the renovations in that building. Kent Virtual Academy is currently housed in its entirety in that building while we're doing renovations and kind of moving those teachers around so we can make sure that we stay on track with our renovations, but also making sure that we're meeting the needs of those teachers as they're working with students online or in person. As well as we have 5 classrooms being used by our outreach program students and staff there as well. So there's a need to be able to have different spaces. As I stated last week, we do have plans for the Kent Virtual Academy and the outreach program. And I stated last week that I'm not able to share those plans with the public because I need to share those plans with the board first. You will see those plans in your weekly board update this week. And then after that point, we'll be able to share those plans with the public. So I come to you this evening to remind you of this need and the opportunity to let you know that the reallocation of these 2016 bond funds, which you'll see right here through these projects, will not have a negative impact on these projects. These projects will go on and be completed on their normal timeline as they're scheduled to do right now. So we are not pulling them off and not having them completed. They will be completed. Now, as I stated last week, there's obviously with the grass field renovation, we've got our 2023 bond where our middle schools and high schools will have their grass fields turned into synthetic fields. So this is one of those fields that if that bond does not pass, then we'll continue to move forward with our renovations. And so we have those funds in our capital levies that will then cover these projects to make sure they are completed. So there is no gap in the timeline as far as these being completed. We are only able to use bond funds to purchase property. We're not able to use levy dollars to purchase bond property. We're not able to use impact fees to purchase property. Only bond funds can be used. So it is legal to use bond dollars to purchase property. The reason I'm here with you tonight and last week is that we have to come to the board. We held a public hearing last week to open it up to our public to be able to share comment on that. And so there is a process I just want to be clear that these projects that you see here will be completed on their regular timelines. So, I don't want to belabor the point because I did spend quite a bit of time up here last week and I answered several questions that board members had. So I'll kind of end it there. If you have any questions, you can ask those now. We also know that we have discussion and approval coming up after public comment this evening as well.
I guess I just want to make sure, and I understand the idea that you can only do, I mean, school funding is complicated. I've come to learn that in the last several months, and that certain funds are for certain things. And so because only bond funds can be used for the purchase of property, something has to be moved from another to, but there is a net extra expense going to happen with purchasing the property, right?
When you say net extra expense, talk to me about that.
So, because there's going to be a property purchased, and that's what we're looking at doing, right? And that is over and beyond what was originally in the plan.
Correct.
Okay. And so I understand that we're moving funds to move them back, right? And it's kind of, it kind of feels cyclical or, circle. But if there's a net extra expense, how are all of the projects, this is what I just want to have made very clear. How are all of these projects still being done when there's a net extra expense still happening for, it looks like $5.6 million?
Sure. No, it's a great question. So as we move those funds from the capital levy, which levies allow us much more flexibility when how we use funds.
Yes.
Not to the flexibility of being able to buy property, but flexibility, because levies are really for deferred maintenance. So there's lots of projects on our capital levy that can be moved around and done. Some are being done through contingency funds because, again, when we go out for the levy, just like we did for the bond, we put in those administrative costs, those contingency costs, because we don't know where we're going to be when it comes to escalation and things like that. When Dave Buzzard came to the board, for example, and said, we have $8 million in contingency funds to be able to put into the new Canyon Ridge Middle School and renovations. Same type of thing as we're working through our projects, we're able to, if we're coming in under our estimated costs, then those monies are in savings. And what happens is that begins to build up. And so when we're working through our 2018 capital levy projects, money, if we're not spending all those monies, those dollars are being saved over here on the side, which then allows us to access our capital levy funds to pay these bond projects off. And then also, I can't say with 100% certainty it's going to balance out with the cost of the property, but we're not foreseeing that we're not able to complete all of our levy projects from this. We've sat down and looked at that, and that's why we're able to borrow from that capital levy to pay for the property or pay the bond back for the property in the reallocation, if that helps.
No, and I absolutely understand the movement from the different, I mean, in my mind, it's general ledgers, because that's my world.
That's what you do.
That's what I do. And so that's fine with that. What I'm trying to understand is, and I also get that there's projects that came in under budget, and I know Mr. Buzzard does a great job at using district funds appropriately and finding great ways of saving us money. I love him showing that in Canyon Ridge and what he's done there. What I want to make sure is there anything that we had committed to saying that we were going to do that's not going to get done? And is there an additional expense that we're going to be seeing somewhere else that we just wouldn't have had before? Or is this truly just going to be all the savings? Because it sounds like there's not exactly a balance there. And so what is that delta?
Yeah, and I can't speak exactly to that piece, to that finite detail. What I can say is that the capital levy projects, they're broad enough that allowed us to be able to drill into those, finish a couple projects for one project because they're in the same space, on the same contract, things like that have opened up funds to be able to allocate to additional projects, which is the nice thing about deferred maintenance, is that things, and as we move through that, so 2018, there were deferred maintenance projects on there that were then no longer needed because we built the new Covington Elementary School, the new River Ridge Elementary School, and KLA as well. So I know exactly what you're asking. I don't have that answer down to the bottom line there to say, well, it looks like it might be $300,000 that we're not going to have to be able to cover that property or whatever it is. I don't have that detail to that point. Now, when Dave and I were talking about this, being able to use the capital levy funds to pay back the bond and the reallocation, he said that we have enough money the way the projects are going that we should be able to cover those projects in the end. So all projects should be finished. Capital levy projects should be finished. Now, the levy is different than the bond. Our 2016 bond was promises made, promises kept. And so we want to make sure that we can stick to that. And that's why when we want to borrow from the 2016 bond, we want to make sure that we're paying back this bond money with the levy money to make sure that we can stick on that promises made, promises kept.
Do you have a question? You have a question?
Can you speak to the advantages of actually having this money on hand through this reallocation that helps our district actually be proactive instead of sometimes some things that have come up? Could you kind of just in general, not,
Sure.
I mean, we've talked about this and I've looked into this further, but I mean, if there's some way you can kind of speak to that issue to make our public understand that just a little bit more. Dr. Behringer?
Yes, thank you, Director Mata. One of the things that I stated in the last meeting was that one thing that we can do a better job as we move forward is thinking about, in previous bonds, we haven't had necessarily line items that speak to property. We don't put $10 million on a bond for property in general just to wait for pieces of property to pop up. In our capital facility plan as well, to have property on there as a plan every 6 years is something that's also important. In Kent, especially where we want property, there's not a lot of property available. Having access to these funds right now, specifically, knowing that we know that there is at least one and potentially 2 or 3 or 4 other pieces of property that may come for sale or available for purchase in the exact same proximity, this is a very timely piece. And I would say year after year, we've never come to the board and said, hey, we need to do a reallocation because we need property. Because even though we're looking for property constantly, it's never created this opportunity that it's doing right now. And specifically in the proximity of the programs that are being impacted by the renovation of Canyon Ridge. And so that's why we're stepping into this space. That's why we're going through this process. I think in the future, and this is a conversation I've had with Israel and I've had it with Executive Director Buzzard as well, is that we need to be more prepared when properties become available. So then having monies available that have already been earmarked or approved by our voters on the bond side of the house to be able to access. So we don't have to go through this process. It's something that our public already knows that, hey, the district's always looking for money, and so that's why they've written in this extra $10 or $15 million. Property in Kent.
Do you mean always
Yeah.
looking for property, not always looking for money?
Property. Yes, looking for property. Always looking for property.
Okay, I think you
Sorry.
said always
Looking for money.
money.
Yeah, no,
I think you meant
property.
property.
Yeah, thank you very much for catching that. No, always looking for property. So always looking for property. And so we have an opportunity right now. In fact, we just finished the process of appraisals of several pieces of property that are in this mix. And it's very timely for us to take advantage of this. And not just for our situation right now, because again, we have plans for Kent Virtual Academy. We have plans for TOP. This opportunity would allow for better plans than the plans we actually have. And it would make much more sense. And so that's why we're coming to you. And in the future, again, we're a learning organization. We don't get everything right the first time. And so we learned from this, and we know next time we need to be either more specific, we need to make sure we put money in there for property, because we're always looking for property. That way we don't have to come through this process. And then the community and board don't have to go, well, are you going to be able to finish all these projects, and have to watch that piece. We want to be just clear. It's like, well, we have money for property. So moving forward, that's the way that'll be. Right now, this is where we are, and this is the situation. So we're following the legal process to go through to be able to access those funds to purchase property and still continue to finish those projects.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Berenger, because I think it's kind of forward thinking on the proactive part of it. And there is a lot of thought that's gone into this, even though it's coming up as a relocation. And it's a little difficult, to follow, but it is extremely important to me, and I'm sure the entire board, that what we say we're going to do and keep our promises with money or anything. But I mean, as far as I see in our conversations way beyond here with you, the specifics that you brought forward and the planning that you've done, it gives us an opportunity to really do better for our district in the long run. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Dr. Berenger.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. The projects that are listed here, are those the only projects that are going to be affected by, or are there any other projects that we don't know about that might pop up?
These are the only 7 projects
Okay.
that we're asking to access the funds that have been allocated for them. And know this too, and I want to make sure, I said this last time, and I'll say it again. If by chance, board goes through, votes, allows us to access these funds, we go into negotiations like you do if you were buying a house, and for whatever reason, the property doesn't work out.
Yeah.
They don't like our offers or whatever. That money goes right back in and still stays with these projects. It's not like, okay, well, now we're just going to keep that $5.6 million in our little slush fund and go look for more properties. No, we're looking at this specific opportunities right now. And so that's what that's for. It's not for, let's hang on to it and look for a couple more years and we'll still backfill it with capital levy. We'll put the money right back in and we'll take care of these projects as it was originally assigned to do.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Dr. Berenger.
Okay, now we are at 3.0, public comments.
Yes.
Are
Like
there
to-
any?
Yes, I would like to invite Ms. Santello to the podium to begin with public comments, followed by online comments.
Okay.
During the time. Ms. Santello.
Good evening, Vice President Farah, members of the board, and Superintendent Vela. This evening, we have received numerous cards for in-person comments. I'll explain those to you when I approach the dais. And there are 5 online comments that have been received and will be read. Neither the in-person nor the online comments are from students.
Okay.
This one is a standalone comment. That will go first, and then these are consecutive.
Got it. This one is standalone, so we'll start with that one. And then these are sequential.
Okay, now I call on Shannon Jefferson Hernandez.
Shannon Jepson Hernandez, Mill Creek Middle School. I'm a KEA member from Mill Creek, sorry. I'm also a Scenic Hill community member, voting constituent, and a KSD parent. Just now in this presentation, Director Hamada said, thank you, Dr. Berenger, for the specifics you brought forward. Dr. Berenger also within this presentation said this opportunity will go for better plans than the plans we have now. I'm very confused because I did not hear any specifics. I heard a lot of generalizations. Exactly what are those plans? How are they going to make it better? We really need to see these specifics that are claiming to make things better. How is reallocating funds right now going to prioritize equity How is the board comfortable with making such a significant decision without a detailed account of this information? I'm here for one reason this evening, and that is equity. How many issues can we count within this district that impact equity? When do we start to shift towards a district using equity as the foundation for our system? We are officially here today to discuss the Resolution 1639 and the plan to reallocate funds for the purpose of combining the Kent Virtual Academy, TOP, and iGrad. Where is equity being considered on behalf of the students being served by these very, very specialized programs? How are their needs being considered? Each of these programs focus on marginalized groups, yet the idea of segregating them together because they need something beyond a general school setting is insane to me. And hopefully to anyone who understands the very specific needs of these students. Is this the best that KSD can do for them? In addition to equity, I'm concerned about safety. How is it okay to isolate these students in this pocket, knowing the law prevents certain students from the iGrad based on specific factors from interacting with minors? When your solutions to create specific pathways for entrances and campus movement within the campus is your only solution because of these laws, one questions, how is that what is best for any and all of these students about to attend this learning space? It is time to stop treating these students like they do not deserve the best opportunities. It's time to give them the same equal opportunities to successfully prepare all students for their futures. Let's start with making Director Bento the new board president, someone who is passionate about equity, someone who believes in the democratic process of supporting a community, a person who seeks the needs of the community, a person not afraid to ask messy questions, a person who approaches decisions thoughtfully with a priority on equity. Second, removing Director Clark from the board entirely. Anyone who has a voting power over a system and the lives of people should not be in that position of power if they can't be objective and if they can't think in an equitable way. Next, the repeated whittling away of public voice.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Your comments are only for the Resolution 1639. Cannot comment on anything else.
All of these things apply to 1639.
Listen,
Public voice.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt.
Okay.
Okay, next person, Joanne Barber.
Hi, Joe Barber. We, the allies, accomplices, and co-conspirators, AACs, of the Kent Educators of Color Network are here in solidarity to make a statement in which to educate Mr. Tim Clark and others who make, at best, missteps in our journey and how we move forward committing to change. White people must be doing this work, and white people must be at the microphone speaking so other white people will hear. This is an open letter to the KSD board members in response to Tim Clark and his history of coded and racially problematic language. We hope this letter serves as a tool for all of us to use as we reflect on times when we are called out or called in to do the work of becoming kinder humans, humans with a true focus on equity. This requires taking full responsibility and taking action to learn and do better. When we focus our apology through an intent versus impact lens, we are not merely apologizing, but learning a lesson. Taking the time to follow the script below or
I
create...
apologize, but we have to only stick to 1630.
Aren't we in open comments right now?
No, we're comments, but only for 1639.
They're open. Keep going.
Yeah,
They just have to follow. Good.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
When we focus our apology through an intent versus impact lens, we are not merely apologizing, but learning a lesson. Taking the time to follow the script below or create your own script allows apologies to stem from the language of continued learning, not merely appeasing our ego. As we all work to have our intent and impact merge, we need to develop skills for what we do when they don't. This is especially important when intent and impact end in harm being caused. When a person indicates that your words have caused harm, or maybe you realize after saying them, this is where the work starts. Had Mr. Clark truly understood intent versus impact, his apology would have sounded more like the following. It would have started with a sincere apology. I'm so sorry for saying or doing a specific thing. I understand your feelings of blank. I am going to work on blank and learn more about blank. Note, simply apologizing for how someone feels places the blame back on that person, deflects the responsibility from yourself, and can sound condescending. Here's what not to do. Do not get defensive. This can sound like, you know I didn't mean it like that, I was just joking, or you take everything so seriously. Do not state, that was never my intention, and add the but. More excuses and ego appeasement. 100%, if your apology starts with, I didn't intend to, this is the immediate giveaway that you have work to do and to begin your lesson in listening to the harm caused and how you can commit to doing better. Ask for more information. Please tell me more about this situation, circumstance.
I think we should give her a little bit more time because I interrupted.
There are others who are willing to defer time.
Continue.
Okay. Please tell me more about this situation, circumstance, feeling, etc. I'm open to hearing about other times I have caused upset, harm, or hurt. Note, it doesn't feel good, but you have to be there standing in the fire. If they do not want to educate you, hear this. It is your job to be open, to listen and learn at the same time, to do your own learning and unlearning. Find an accountability person to talk with and help you understand how you can improve. And then there's always Google. Do the work. Please consider history. When we say or do things, it is possible that there is historical significance to our actions that further amplify the problem. If you don't know what is being referenced, simply take the time to do an internet search for the term that you used and ask what is meant by blank. For example, what is the historical meaning of the word colony or colonize? Lead with a lens of trust. When a BIPOC person indicates there is a problem, believe them. We do not need to have them convince you there is a problem. Just because it's not a problem for you doesn't mean it fails to be a problem. Simply believe them. Also understand that this is likely not the first time you have crossed a line, but a time they are willing to speak up. Listen. Show you are committed to doing better. Ask to sit in and not take up verbal space, AKA colonizer in the modern day sense. And legitimately listen. Participate in groups not like yourself. Be in the community empathizing. Do not preach or show up with saviorism. I'll fix it. Another way to state this is to step back. Now that we have a script, we must move to address the intersection of other issues at heart. While we're going to say some words and phrases that may be unknown to you or feel strange, this is not the time for us to unpack it all. We can focus on that another day. We need to
Can I ask the next person, Jody, to?
Yes, I defer
Okay,
my
so you
time
defer,
to
okay,
Joanne.
good.
We need to take a moment to address the obvious privilege that is in existence here. We ask you to consider the following circumstances. What if the person who had made the remarks had been a woman? What if that person who had made the remarks had been a person of color? What if they were disabled? What if they were an immigrant? What if they were a religion other than a Christian-based religion? What if it was anyone with any intersection of these and or more? We know that person would be removed from their position based on the caste system that is America. The privileges afforded to Mr. Clark would not be afforded to others. Mr. Clark has had myriad opportunities to do this work with us and has not followed through with the offers extended to him. He has shown a pattern of behavior without doing the work with his constituents. It is past time of being restorative in a situation such as this. He's past due for doing the work. Doing the work now is essential but not enough to retain this position. We ask KSD, why is Tim Clark still there? Period. If KSD is truly dedicated to legitimately doing equity work, Tim Clark would no longer be participating in his role. We cannot let the centuries of intersecting patriarchy, white supremacy culture, male fragility, and status quo get in our way. We ask that you do not offer to coddle him based on his age, intent, or even if he is a nice guy. Nice doesn't do us any favors. Growth, compassion, work, effort, and change do, however. On behalf of all KSD staff, scholars, and community members committed to doing better each and every day, we ask that Tim Clark be removed from his position on the board through equity, the AACs of the Kent Educators of Color Network. Thank you.
Okay, the next person is Kristen Horton.
I was going to defer my time to them.
Okay, And Marla Taylor,
I was going to defer my time also.
okay. And then Ms. Ross.
Good evening, KSD board members, Vice President Awali Flowera, and Israel Vela, Superintendent Israel Vela. My name is Fam Seychal Ross, and I'm a teacher at Martin Sertoon Elementary. I'm a member of the Kent Educators of Color Network, a parent of 3 KSD students, and a resident of Covington. I would like to share my feelings regarding several comments the former KSD board president made during a board meeting regarding our diverse communities and populations. I am appalled and saddened by the lack of respect and lack of cultural sensitivity the KSD board president demonstrated when referring to a group of people as, quote, a colony of Somalis. Furthermore, he made comments generalizing refugees and stereotyping them. The former board president even stated how certain schools are, quote, way too diverse with too many needs as a problem. Maybe his intent was not to cause harm, but his words had a negative impact. His attempt at an apology showed his lack of understanding and centered himself rather than on the people he hurt. His negative views about himself rather than on the people he hurt. His negative views about diverse populations was evident at several other meetings, and he appears to have not learned cultural competence, which is needed in a school board position, a position that is meant to represent the best interest of the diverse community he is supposed to serve. How can he hold these biased views about our students and families of color and make decisions that impact their education, right for equity, and inclusion? It is not enough he has resigned as the KSD board president and remains in a position as a KSD board member. I strongly believe that our KSD students and families deserve a school board representative that is an ally, seeks to learn and grow, and truly works for their best interest. I ask that actions be taken to remove him as a KSD board member and request that another school board member be appointed as the board president. Thank you for your time and supporting all of our KSD students and families.
Okay, the next person is Netera Brad Gutierrez.
Hello, my name is Netera Pratt Gutierrez. I work at Pine Tree Elementary, and I, every so often, roll with the Kent Educators of Color Network. Good evening, Board, Vela. We as educators work tirelessly for our students to be seen, heard, and respected. This is not the case for all educators in the Kent School District. Per the final seniority list, number 971 on the seniority list is still employed by the Kent School District. Number 971 not only insulted and bullied a girl in 2nd grade, they were IVT'd and then targeted 11 and 12-year-olds. KSD had her removed from the classroom after not 1 but 2 instances of harming students. Why are we allowing this? Once again, their number is 971.
Denisha Sucero.
Thank you, Board and Superintendent Vela. Happy to be here with you tonight. I have a hoarse voice from, 15, 16-hour days, it feels like, so I'm going to go ahead and just speak. Can't remember that number that Nettie just brought up, but it made me think back to 971, thank you. It made me think about the promises that we've talked about. It made me think about being proactive that you guys have talked about. It made me think about equity that we've talked about. It made me think about specialized programs that we talked about. And I want to center back to my actual building where we have specialized programs. We have students with high needs. We have teachers that are working tirelessly. I get to my building at 7:30 every morning, and last night I didn't get home till 8:30. Okay, that's where I'm at. But every day right now, you have a bunch of educators clueless about what is about to happen to them with this IVT. Clueless. HR doesn't know, our union doesn't know, and our principals are doing their best to get the information and transfer to us whatever they think it's saying. Yes, you are being IVT. No, you're not. What are we doing here, right? So I need you guys to think about this for a second. We have a building that has classrooms of 12 and classrooms of 27. In the same building, classrooms of 12, classrooms of 8, and classrooms of 27. But our dual language classrooms of 8 and 12 and 16 at most are possibly going to hold these positions above those teachers that are at 27 and 28 with 8 to 9 to 10 languages in that one classroom. These highly qualified teachers are sitting on edge, not knowing if they will hold their job. And I have to tell you on a personal note, one of those people is my husband, a graduate of the Kent School District, who has given almost 8 years to this district. Me, 20. And it will not be 21 if you move him. It will not be 21. I will not continue to work for a district that doesn't know what's going on in each of their buildings, that does not understand and practice equity, as we say. He speaks Spanish, yet possibly first-year teachers who don't speak Spanish might hold their position in a building that they know nothing about, they're learning about.
Next person, Doris Warren.
Good afternoon. My name is Doris Warren, and I am a teacher at Mill Creek Middle School, cheer coach, also member of Kent Educators of Color, national trainer with the NEA. And I tell you all this so that you understand what I'm about to say to you. As a woman of color in this profession, the situation that just happened on this dais in Covington hits real close to home. Historically, brown and black people have been socialized to stay in our place, not make waves, even to the point of overlooking the inappropriate statements and actions of white people, but also feeling like we should be the ones to apologize for whatever prompted said words or actions. And if you think that this is something that no longer occurs, you're mistaken. We have white teachers who use racial slurs and remain employed by our district. We have a white teacher who feels emboldened to interrupt my class to scold me about something they thought I said about another white educator who used the N-word in their class, but never once did this white educator think to go talk to that person about what they had said and done. I see this happen to our students on our campus all the time. And these kids are supposed to apologize and stay in their place or not say anything at all. What message are we sending our black and brown scholars? You don't matter. Your feelings have no value. The harm done to you can be explained and reasoned away with no meaningful reparation. The rules are different for white people than they are for you. If the person who is supposed to represent our strand of scholars is still allowed to represent them after making several culturally insensitive comments, why should they not believe all of the above statements about themselves? And when they believe that they don't have a voice or matter within the system, is when they seek to have a voice and matter outside of the system. I have a student today had a court date with ankle monitor at 8th grade. I had students today talking about going and doing things that kids these age shouldn't even be thinking about doing. That's their voice if they don't have their voice here.
Okay. Next person is Brad Allen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brett Allen. I've taught in the Kent School District for over 20 years at either Mill Creek Middle School or Kent Meridian High School the entire time. And I'm also the proud father of 2 KSD scholars and a very proud member of the Kent Educators of Color Network. Someone I'm honored to call a friend and sister in arms spoke to all of you eloquently last week and talked about how when people show you who they are, you should believe them. And at the heart of that quote by Maya Angelou is this idea of patterns. In the educational field, we're urged to pay close attention to patterns all the time. Those patterns are data we can use as educators to inform our practice and make decisions that hopefully lead to better results for our scholars. But patterns are really communication, and patterns are revealing. So when someone exhibits a pattern of behavior, they're really communicating to you about who they are and what they value or don't value. There's a pretty clear pattern emerging from our school board leaders, and it's manifested itself in harmful words, comments, actions, and frankly, inaction as well. There was a public broad brush reference to Somali people with a word that carries harmful and historically negative connotations. There was a subsequent non-apology apology for those comments that turned into a wandering defense that basically equated to, it's okay because I have Somali friends. Not to mention a comment back in August where a broad brush was again used to paint specific groups of scholars in a negative light in an effort to defend uniformed SROs on Kent campuses because, and I quote, "We all know that kids bring things in terms of their troubled lives from other places. They come from apartment buildings. They come from homes in unsafe areas." There have been specific invitations to a board member to come and visit the classrooms of the strand they represent at every level, elementary, middle school, and high school, to come and build relationships with students that they were elected to serve. And those invitations were not even responded to, let alone accepted or denied. Yet that same board member visited other schools outside their strand and celebrated those visits publicly. There are more examples of the pattern, but those are enough for me to make my point. If it were just one isolated incident, I'd be all for education and restoration as leadership figures out how to respectfully work with and address the people they serve, but the pattern is evident. And because the pattern is evident and seemingly set, we cannot afford to let board members who exhibit this pattern learn cultural competency on the job. Done with that. Let him learn it on his own time, let him learn it on his own dime and away from this space, which they have used to repeatedly harm and disrespect folks that they were, again, elected to represent. Take a step back, people. Respond to the pattern because they've clearly showed us who they are, and we'd be stupid not to believe them.
Okay, the next person is Megan Carter.
Hello, members of the board. I am Megan Carter. I am a parent in KSD, and I just wanted to come tonight to address what happened last week, both on Monday and then again, to even a worse degree, on Wednesday. I think it's extremely concerning that no real action has been taken yet. We were asked last week to give you guys time, but now here we are. There was no agenda item tonight for this, and it's not really being addressed other than with an apology. I just think it's very concerning that all these incredible educators are having to take time away from what they should be doing to address an adult who should know better and should be better. They aren't working on lesson plans right now. They're not helping kids that they work with. They aren't spending time with their own families. They're having to come here and spend time and time again, to deal with a board member who is acting just incredibly inappropriately. That is not what we want our incredible educators in KSD to spend their time doing. So please do better and be better, and Director Clark should resign or be removed immediately. Thank you.
Okay, the next person and the last person is Andrea Victoria. Okay, thank you. And now we're gonna entertain the online.
Vice President Farrar, I believe we have online comments. Vincent Tello will read.
Okay.
Good evening, Vice President Farah, members of the board, and Superintendent Vela. The first of the online comments to be read was submitted by Justice Phelps. Dear KSD Board, my name is Justice Phelps, and I am an alum of this district. However, I am not proud to be a graduate of the Kent School District. I am a disappointed and embarrassed alum of this district. Recently, comments were made by a board member that were racist and completely unacceptable. It took this board a week to act, and all that happened was he resigned as president. I am calling for this former board president to resign immediately. You, sir, should no longer be in office and should resign. Our district is one of the most diverse in the nation, and yet we allow for someone to make racist comments and still be able to sit on the dais. This community has given you all time. It is now time to act. Please take action. Also, speaking to the budget reallocation, this is not the time to even be thinking about doing such an action. You had a speaker get up and essentially say that we, the community, have no right to know what the plans are. Well, we actually do, and we would like to know what the plans are. And before members of this board get up and say that we should watch the board meeting from last week, I did, and saw that the speaker was trying to hide something. The board has been told in the past there is no land to purchase. Then what land are we purchasing? Why are we doing this action now when we have a $500 million bond on the ballot? Why is the district trying to reallocate $5.6 million when, according to the proposed budget that was submitted to the OSPI, they have moved $4 million general fund dollars over to the capital fund? Stop hiding and not being transparent and actually lead. So now, instead of just having $5.6 million in the capital fund, you're going to have almost $10 million in the fund. What is this district hiding? For a district that claims to not have a lot of money, you sure seem to know how to exploit every avenue possible. The community is paying attention and will be voting on this bond. I will join those no votes, and I hope that this bond doesn't pass. This board and this district can no longer be trusted with public money, period. Thank you. The next online public comment was submitted by Allison Riley. Good evening, Board of Directors and Superintendent Vela. The comments about race impacting the new school boundaries and then the comments made at Wednesday's board meeting came into sharp and necessary focus last week. The impact of what was insinuated last Monday has not been addressed by this board or district, nor has the board president's resignation. With that in mind and the obvious work the community needs to see from the board and district, I am requesting the vote on the reallocation of $5 million of bond money be tabled for a later meeting in order to completely and professionally handle both of these massively important issues. The next online comment was submitted by Sarah Eldridge. I want to echo the words of other concerned staff parents, and community members in calling for the removal of a board member from the school board. His racist comments and subsequent non-apology are inexcusable. Like someone said, there is room for grace and learning, but do it on your own time. We need to fill this school board seat with someone committed to equity, inclusion, and transparency. Thank you. The next comment was submitted by Joe Riley. Good evening, Board of Directors and Superintendent Vela. I watched the presentation given by staff on March 22nd about the 2016 bond fund reallocation. I then wrote 2 emails to the board, one regarding my concerns over the bond fund reallocation and the other regarding the negative comments made by the former board president. I received 3 replies regarding those comments and none regarding the bond fund reallocation. Given the focus of those email replies and the subsequent meeting last Friday, I question whether the board has given enough thought and research into the potential impact of the bond fund reallocation. I strongly urge you to table this resolution until you can appropriately consider all of the concerns raised by community members. The final comment for the evening was submitted by Denise Renteria. This is in regard to a board member's recent comments regarding our diverse communities and students. While I think I might understand what he was attempting to say, he did not communicate well nor clearly or make a sincere apology for the impact of his words. I am a teacher at Scenic Hill, which he mentions in some of his comments, and have been there 10 years. While he is correct in saying that the neighborhood is gentrified and most of the students are bused up from the valley, upwards of 90%, not 75% as he stated, and correct even in saying that this is causing unanticipated effects, there is something very important missing from his comments. He cannot decenter himself and center our very diverse students and communities as a strength, not a problem to be solved. In student population has granted us the opportunity to service our Latino students through the best model for educating multilingual students, the dual language program, and we are very successful. The commitment of our admin and staff to view our students and communities as an asset versus deficit and center their needs is what has enabled our school to move forward and succeed. This is what we understand works, and this is what the board member is tone deaf to, does not communicate or does not understand. Diversity equals strength and is an asset. This is the messaging that we need to hear versus what he is communicating. Time for him to deeply know that the impact of his words is far different than his intent and not the same thing. But he needs to go learn this on his own and because he wants to, not because his position may be compromised on the school board. I have no confidence in this board member to represent our diverse communities, students, and schools. Our school is literally his backyard, and he describes it as he described it once himself. And yet, to my knowledge, he has visited only once for 10 minutes during the past summer's teacher strike. Yes, he came to talk to our principal while we were out front picketing. Again, intent versus impact. I hope this board member would want to step down from the board to create an opportunity for someone who genuinely understands diversity is an asset and strength to show up, be seen, and be elected. There is no time to waste in blaming the system for allowing him to remain ignorant as to the impact of his words. Our communities deserve better representation now. Those are the final comments for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Intello.
Okay, now we are at 4.0, discussion and approval. Can I get a motion to approve 4.01 resolution number 1639, 2016 bond fund reallocation?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and second. Any discussion?
With the public comment tonight, I'm just taken a little aback by some of the issues that they brought up about isolation of our special needs kids. And I mean, I personally would like to table this, and I know we've already got a motion on the floor, till our next meeting to kind of do a little bit more in-depth data collecting on this.
Leslie, are you proposing maybe a amendment to make the vote another day? Is there something that you're suggesting on this one?
Yes, I guess, yeah. Could I have some clarification from our legal, please? Yes.
Thank you, Board Chair Farah and Superintendent Vella and board members. There's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded, and during discussion, there was some discussion of tabling that motion. If that discussion is deemed a motion that is appropriate, a motion to table during that portion of discussion, and you can entertain that motion, which would then supersede the other. If it is a motion. I didn't hear you make a motion.
Right.
But if you do, then that's the process.
Yeah, I'm kind of formulating through my head.
Can I ask a question in the meantime?
Sure.
This is directed for the superintendent of the potential impact of delaying this vote.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely impact in a variety of ways. The first would be in the, as you heard earlier today, the timing by which we need to be purchasing property, including what happens after that. So I would add that. I would also ask Associate Superintendent Dr. Behringer come up to give you additional impacts. That's one just off the top of my head.
Thank you, Superintendent Vella. Just to respond to Director Hamada's concern, we had one person share one thing about an impacted group. So I'm assuming she's referring to our outreach program, which is currently housed in a facility. I mean, the idea is not to move those students to a whole different facility, but we do need to have additional space for those students because they are currently using 4 or 5 classrooms in the new building. So we're taking into consideration, of course, I mean, we've been having conversations with the principal of the transition with the outreach program and the executive director of learning improvement for like the last 7 months about what these plans would look like to make sure that we can make sure that we are meeting the needs of all of our students in that program. So that has been on the forefront. We're not just going in and going, well, this is what we're going to do, so you're just going to have to live with it. And so that has been taken into consideration that entire time. On the flip side of if we're not able to move forward this evening, that pushes us back till the end of April. And we wouldn't be coming to you with a special meeting request and a public hearing if we didn't think that this was extremely timely. based on the piece of property that's currently available, as well as other pieces that are tangentially connected to these pieces of property. So I can't say that 4 weeks from now, the next board meeting, that these pieces would be even available, and therefore we'd lose that opportunity. So it is timely. The comment about the impact to our inclusive ed students, totally understand that. That's why we included our principal and our executive director of learning improvement while we're working through this process to see what's best fit would be for that program. So we're not just like, hey, here's a backup plan to a backup plan. This opportunity allows us to purchase a piece of property that would allow them to have experiences that they currently don't have access to in the Canyon Ridge building, as well as the building that they reside in right now, that they've kind of grown out of a little bit. So we've thought through this, and we've engaged all the parties that need to be engaged in that, and they understand what we're trying to do for them, for our kids.
In addition, Dr. Clark, added impact is we are opening Canyon Ridge in the fall. In our visits you've seen, we've been using space in that building. So again, from a timely perspective, we need to have access to be able to purchase. Remember, there's space there that we could use in the meantime. And so very timely. So those are three impacts that I'd like the board to consider.
Just wanted to also, Dr. Behringer, when we were doing the border changes and making Canyon Ridge a middle school, we knew that we were going to lose 5 classrooms, but we had a plan for the kids that attend those classrooms where they should go. But this is an opportunity that presented itself now, and that's why you are figuring out how to move money around so that we can purchase this property, which is within proximity of where top building is. Therefore, it would be our benefit to move this now because of the fact that we know that we need this property because of the proximity.
Yeah. Yes. And to one of the speaker's point, we have 2 plans. Mm-hmm. This third plan of the purchasing of the property is the better of the 2 than the other 2 plans. Because again, anything that we do when we're moving 5 classrooms out of a building, if they had space in the top building, they would have already been in there. We wouldn't be having a conversation. But the fact is that we do need space. And so when we're thinking about how can we keep that program as close to one another as possible to be able to access the staff and the resources that they have, this new opportunity is the opportunity that we're going through all of this work to make sure. And again, as soon as a property became available, we took the principal, the executive director of learning improvement, we did a walkthrough of the property. We talked about all the options and opportunities if we were able to access this, but knowing that we had to go through all these steps with the board. And then even if we have access to the money, then it's going through putting the offers and going through that whole entire process. So it's very timely because every month we push it off. We may not have the time to be able to, if we need to do any little renovations and retrofitting of spaces, we want to have time to be able to do that, which right now we believe that's not going to be an issue. But we want to be timely. So
I just didn't quite understand, because we had teachers in the room who I respect, and their opinion. I was confused by what they feel like we're not doing the best for them. I don't understand that point. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but I mean, that's the only thing. I understand the timeliness. I understand it's a need to be done, but that was one issue I didn't quite connect with. What were they trying to get at? That we're putting them off somewheres by themselves? I mean, was there something I'm missing here? Sorry.
I just think that might be a difficult
question
to answer. I hear
I
what you're
agree.
saying, I think asking Mr. Behringer, Dr. Behringer to answer the intent of somebody else might be
Really, yeah.
a really hard.
I agree. I'm just confused by that, that's all.
I would ask the board to consider, and Director Hamada, you mentioned it yourself, being proactive and looking to the future is something that I know my team has been doing for quite some time. When we look at space and we look at the future, in no other words, the future is now. In order for many things to happen, not just the timeliness of what we have to do. And yeah, so I'll just share that I remember you saying that, and I would agree with that, and ask the board again to consider. So,
Any other discussion? So what do we do now?
you have a motion.
Was there
We
a
have a
motion
motion.
to table?
No?
Okay, there you go.
Call
So
for a vote?
with that, I'll ask, call for the vote. And all in favor to pass this resolution, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
How about you have to vote too?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I was given. I'm sorry.
Not a given.
Yeah, aye. And any,
Sorry, which one are yours? You're not.
okay, so let me go back to the motion that I just asked for approval.
Okay.
I would like, the motion that's on now is to get an approval of resolution, 4.01 resolution 639, 2016 bond fund reallocation.
Yes.
That's the motion that we are approving.
And all of those in favor?
All of those in favor,
Signify by raising.
signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, I'm sorry.
Get your hand up there, Wally, if you're gonna do it. Come on,
careful.
you're doing great.
All right.
You're doing great.
It's hard when you're the one on the microphone.
I know, because I'm assuming that I am already aye. Aye. And anyone, any president will say, any opposed, say no or raise your right hand. Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Wow,
4.02.
wow.
You're doing great.
Oh, I can't
You're
believe it.
doing great. Wally.
All right, the next resolution is 4.02. Can I get a motion to approve the appointment of Dr. Rebecca Kim as Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would ask the superintendent to speak to that appointment.
Absolutely, Director Clark. Excited for the Kent School District and the future of our kids as it relates to our core business of teaching and learning. Dr. Kim comes to us highly regarded from a neighboring district. Notice I don't say the district. But just so happy and look forward to having her join Team KSD.
Okay.
And I just want to piggyback, looking at her qualifications, excited for the possibility to have somebody of that caliber come to our district.
Nice. Any more discussions? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Is that right?
Any opposed?
That's all four. You
And
don't have to ask for
all
the rest
opposed,
of it.
say no, or you raise your right hand. Any abstentions? And the motion passes. Okay, now that we will, since we have had a executive session before this meeting, and we don't have another meeting, the second meeting, second executive session scheduled for this evening for a special meeting is no longer necessary and is canceled. And so therefore,
Wait, I'm going to have a point of privilege before we leave. I very much, I guess I'll start with, I'm usually a really good sleeper, and I have not been this last couple weeks. And my heart breaks when we feel like there's just so much animosity within the district. And so I can't control everything, but what I can control is my own apology. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry that words were said, and they shouldn't have been. I also am very much believe in the process of a school board and the collective action of the board, and understand that we cannot make collective action without all of us here. I mean, that's the whole point of a collective action. You need everybody. So we need to have Joe here. And I know that will happen. I also believe that we are a community of continuous learning. And I will always defer on the side that everybody can continue to learn. So I just want to say personally myself, I am so sorry.
Vice President Farah, I'd also like to point of privilege that, again, there's no words I can really say other than I apologize personally for anything that has taken place, and I personally will endeavor to do better. And we all as a group, I hope we're going to work harder to do better, and I think we can do that.
Yeah.
yeah. Any other? Okay. With that, the time is 6:47. We are adjourned.